And good afternoon, producer Susan. How's life in Pennsylvania these days?
Well, we got 4 inches of snow yesterday, and it all melted today.
Is that your first snowstorm of the year?
No, we had a couple already.
All right. Ask me how much snow I've had so far this year in New Jersey.
I want to guess zero.
Zero so far. Not even a flake. But we finally got some rain because our reservoirs are running dry. So we
As
finally
are
got some.
ours.
Or yours are running dry too?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Well, let's hope we get some good moisture this winter. Anyway, you want to hear what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, what's on the agenda?
Oh, got a lot. I had to cut this down. I had to cut like six items out of this. But here's what I got it narrowed down to. So first of all, it's the situation with Jersey Joe. It's news and perspective you won't hear on TV, and I got a lot of stuff you won't hear on TV, including some things you heard on TV that are complete nonsense. We'll talk about that today. Anyway, today is December 17th of 2024. It's the day after the school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin, which we will be talking about, and just 5 days before the winter solstice. And what is the winter solstice?
It is when it'll start to get daylight again next
Well,
week.
it's the day when we have the shortest number of daylight hours of
Sure.
the year. So
Yes.
that's Saturday the 21st.
Yes.
It's the shortest number of daylight hours in a day. So starting after Saturday, every day we'll gain a couple of minutes of daylight until we get to the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year, which I think is June 21st.
Mhm.
So anyway, so we're 5 days away from the dead middle, the shortest day of the year. So anyway, let me tell you what we're going to try to talk about. You ever heard of a guy named Frederic Bastiat?
No.
He's a French economist. He died back in 1850, but he has an interesting comment on tariffs and free trade. So and given the talk about Trump's tariffs, we're going to talk about his comment on free trade. And our stupidest thing that we've heard all week, I've heard all week. Normally we have we have one winner, maybe two contenders. This week we have four different stupid contenders to pick with. So our listeners will have to decide which one of these four things is the stupidest thing. It's just been a great week for stupid things. Regarding the Madison school shooting, there's just been some insane exaggerations on the different news medias about how many school shootings we've had this year. And I started seeing them last night, and I saw some more this morning. And I'm going to give you a roundup of how ridiculous the hyperbole around the number of school shootings you're going to hear the media claiming, and why it's all complete nonsense. In our Science Minute, we'll tell you why the lab notes of one very famous Nobel Prize winner have to be kept in a lead-lined box more than a century after she died. And in another Science Minute, we'll tell you what a study discovered about the functioning of journalists' brains. When I first saw this, I thought it was satire. No, this is a scientific study that took a group of 80 journalists and compared their brain functions to that of the average person, or I'm sorry, not the average person, but compared to executives, people who are managers in different businesses. Very, very interesting comparison between a journalist brain and the brains of executives and managers. Do you drink regular canned soda? Or
I don't.
okay,
Not
well,
really.
good, because in our health minute, we'll tell you how much sugar you would consume in a month if you drank just one regular can of soda per day. And I know some people that drink two or three cans of soda per day,
Yeah, I don't.
and it's amazing. And here's another one, CNN, which has, used to be kind of the leader in network news. There was headline news and there was CNN. I'm going to tell you how far down CNN has fallen in the ratings. And of course, they've been cutting the salaries of their staff and whatnot. But I'm going to tell you what non-news cable TV network has overtaken CNN in the ratings. It's really sad. And our taxpayer relief shot segment comes to us from Houston, Texas, where a man's daughter who's staying with her father shoots and kills a man who broke into her father's home while she was there. All right. So here's our quote of the week by French economist Frederic Bastiat. He lived from 1801 to 1850. And of course, this is translated from the French. He said, a people, meaning the citizens of a country, have two ways of procuring something. The first is to make it. The second is to make something else and then trade for it. It is certainly better to have the option than to not have it, meaning the option to trade for us. Let us therefore demand the freedom to trade. I mean, think about that. We
Yeah.
don't we don't have the ability to make everything we need and want in this country. But the way it's always worked for centuries is that I have something that you want and you have something I want. Let's do a trade. Maybe I have to give you three of mine for four of yours or vice versa. But free trade is essential. And this is Bastiat from the early 1800s. And again, he said a people, meaning the citizens of a country, have two ways of procuring something. The first is to make it, and that assumes you have the natural resources and the skills to make it, the minerals, the lumber, whatever, the materials. The second is to make something else and then trade what you made for the thing you want that somebody else has made. And it is certainly better to have the option than to not have it. So let us therefore demand the freedom to trade. What do you think of Bastiat? Pretty smart guy?
Yeah, I mean, there's a show and I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically like you barter, you get something small. You have this ultimate goal of
Hmm.
something very large or expensive, but you start off and you keep trading up and trading up and trading up to see, okay, how many times do I need to trade up to get to my ultimate goal of what I want?
I
There used
think
to
I
be a
saw. I
show
think I
about
saw a
that.
couple of Cove episodes. People start off with something that was for like $20, and they wound up with something that was worth $5,000 because they just kept trading up and up and up.
Yeah.
All right. Um, all right. So you want to hear the five contenders and the stupidest thing I've heard all week?
Yeah. Yeah,
Four,
five.
four,
Yeah.
four,
Four.
four
I thought
rather.
you said four.
I did say four. All right. The first comes to us from Texas, and this is not a proposed law. This is an actual law that was passed by the legislature, signed by the governor. They have passed a law limiting the number of dildos that a person can own to five or less. And I hope I don't have to describe to our listeners what a dildo is. Uh, but so I've got a whole bunch of questions about this law. First of all, does that mean, since the law says that a person can own, does that mean if there's a couple in the house, they can have up to 10 and still not be breaking the law? And my next question, how are they going to enforce this? Are they going to is this going to be like buying a gun? When you go to the checkout, you have to pass a background check to see how many previous ones you bought. And if you already bought five, you can't buy the sixth. How are they going to enforce this law of five or less? Talk about unnecessary laws. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said, "The government that governs best governs least." I mean, is this a law that we really needed?
Yeah, is this necessary?
Is this a that's contender number one? A Texas law that limiting to how many dildos you can own to five. It's dildos and and/or sex toys. Uh, um, and I don't know if I should even say. No, I won't even say this. No, I had another question, but it's a little too graphic. All right. The second one comes to us from Michigan, where a state legislature has proposed a ban on colored guns. Because you can buy guns that are pink or lavender or
Yeah.
turquoise. Didn't you tell me one time that your grandmother had a pink gun?
Yeah, and she had a very specific reason why she wanted a pink gun as opposed to a black gun is so that she could see it in low light. That if she
Yeah.
was reaching into her dark dresser at night, it would be
Stand
easier
out.
it would be easier to see in low level lighting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
trying
that
to
was
find
why
a
she
black
wanted it.
gun in a bedside drawer in the middle of the night. That's not an
Yeah.
easy thing to do.
Yeah, she specifically wanted a colored gun so she could find it easier.
And they become all the rage. I mean, I was looking online. There's you can get them in turquoise and purple and
Yeah.
pink and
Hers was
and
pink.
yeah. So that's number two. Now again, that's not a law yet, but it's proposed. It's a proposed law to ban the sale of colored guns in the state of Michigan. And our third comes to us from the Scripps Spelling Bee organization. They run the National Spelling Bee, and they have different categories. They have one for third graders, one for sixth graders,
Mhm.
one for ninth graders, and one for high school seniors. Well, they have just approved a new rule for the third grade category, because you would never find this word in any of the more advanced. But for the word woman, for the third grade group, if a third grader wants to spell the word woman, Womyn, instead of Men, they will accept as a correct answer because several feminists have objected to the spelling of woman that has the word Men at the back. So that's why feminists are now spelling the word woman Womyn. So they're saying, well, if you have a mother who spells the word woman Womyn in your house, and that's the way you learn the word, we will accept that as a proper spelling. But guess what? I checked my dictionary and I checked my online dictionary, Webster's online dictionary. I can't find Womyn as a correct spelling of the word woman? Or have you?
So, at the beginning, or I'm sorry, at the end of every year, I believe it's Webster's, they put out the list of new words added to the dictionary each year. And I'm curious to know if that word will be the new one of the new words that's added to the dictionary at the end of
I
this year.
I think they already did that 2 weeks ago, and I don't recall woman, M-Y-N, being one of the new words they added to the dictionary. I could be wrong, but again, so that's our third contender. Scripps, the spelling bee will accept woman, Womyn, as the correct spelling of the word woman. And our fourth contender, you ever watch any of these reality shows like Dancing with the Stars or The Real Housewives or any of these
Yep.
things,
Yep.
or Survivor?
Yep.
Well, up until now, they've compensated these people as independent contractors. Say, you want to be on the show, we'll give you so much an episode. And if you can't do the show, you decide you don't want to stop, you want to stop coming to the show, we're going to pay you so much an episode, assuming that you show up and can make it. Well, Biden's National Labor Relations Board has just declared that people who appear on reality shows like Dancing with the Stars or The Real Housewives or Survivor must be classified as employees. They must withhold Social Security and Medicare from their payments. They will be covered by workers' compensation, and that they have the right to unionize and strike. So, is it just me, or is that pretty stupid?
That's pretty ridiculous.
All right.
And
So,
I did send you, and we do have a fifth contender I sent you in
oh,
Ohio.
that's right. Why don't you tell it? Why don't you tell it? Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. And upon my
this,
apologies, we
this is
actually had
something
five.
that's near and dear to my heart. So in Ohio, the state of Ohio, a politician has proposed a bill to make flag planting a felony offense after a fight broke out at the Michigan Ohio State game last week. When Michigan actually won and defeated Ohio State, allowing us to go to the championship, Penn State to go to the championship
Right.
game. So it is not a misdemeanor, but a felony. I believe it was a fifth degree felony offense to plant your flag on on a football field after a victory. Yeah. How ridiculous is this?
Right. So,
This goes back to your first one. Do we really need these laws? Do these laws really need to exist?
you're right. And for those who are not familiar, it's become more of a thing now. When the visiting team defeats a rival in the rival's home stadium, that
Mhm.
some of the fans of the visiting team will attempt to take their college flag
Mhm.
and plant it and stick it in the ground at midfield, when
Yeah.
all the fans rush to field. It's just kind of a college tradition.
This
Uh,
this felony proposed bill is called the Ohio Sportsman Act. If anybody would like to look that up, I have the link. We can add that to the notes too.
all right, so listeners, we want to hear from you. So here's our five, just to recap, our five, not four, but five contenders. The Texas law limiting the number of dildos you can own to five. Michigan that wants to ban the sale or ownership of colored guns. The script spelling bee accepting woman spelled Womyn as a correct answer in the third grade spelling bee.
Mhm.
Fourth contender, National Labor Relations Board declaring that people who appear in reality shows are employees and not independent contractors. And the fifth one being the Ohio law that is proposing to make planting your college flag on the opponent's football field at the end of the game a felony. Those are
Yeah.
your five contenders.
I feel
Listeners,
like we could have an entire podcast on just these
stupid
stupid things
stuff.
of the week.
Stupid stuff. Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about the dildo one in terms of all these questions about enforcement and, do you need to get a search warrant and when you went to the
I
judge
mean,
for
with
this?
the
Yeah.
gun one, I kind of understand where they're coming from. Is that, a small child sees a pink gun and could mistake it as a toy. I do understand that one. So I guess I got to give them that one.
But
But
yeah, but come on, a law limiting the
yeah,
ownership of dildos. Oh, come on.
and planting a flag a felony offense. I mean, come on. That's just poor. That's just you're being a poor loser.
Yeah, you are. All right, so let's move on to something more serious. I assume everybody knows, is on Monday in Madison, Wisconsin, a 15-year-old female student walked into her Christian school with a handgun and shot six people, killing two of them, another teenage student and a teacher, and then she shot herself. So there are three fatalities. It's truly a tragic. Now, by the way, it's been a long, long time since we've had an actual school shooting in this country. Well, at least I
Not
thought it
according
was.
to mainstream media.
Well, that's what I want to talk about. So, because as you know, I pay attention to these things and I actually keep a little, running tally. So you can imagine my surprise yesterday evening when I'm watching the CBS News. And as I'm watching the news, they come up with this graphic, which is read by the commentator,
Mhm.
that we have had, quote, and this is a quote, and I've actually got a link to it,
Mhm.
323 school shootings in this country so far this year. That is literally one per day for every day since January 1. Now, did
Mhm.
you hear about 7 school shootings in this country last week?
No, not at all.
And
I
today,
don't
and,
even think
and
that
today's
I've
what,
heard
the
of
16th?
seven this whole year.
Have you heard about 16? We're in today's the 17th. Have you heard about 17 school shootings so far this month?
No, again, I don't think that I've even heard of seven for the whole year.
Well, and you're right. The actual number is less than 7. I'll tell you how many less than 7 it is. So that's the first one. I'm going, what the F are you talking about? 323 school shootings. Um, so then comes along. Well, first of all, let me tell you where they come up with this number. We've talked about this in the past. There's this far left-wing nut job anti-gun group called the Gun Violence Archive. And they keep like a database of what they call school shootings. Well, what they consider a school shooting, for instance, if there's 2 guys involved in a drug deal at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night on the school playground, and one of them shoots the other one, they consider that a school shooting, even though it took place on the playground 10 o'clock on Saturday night. In some of the rural schools, if a stray hunter's bullet hits a parked car in the school parking lot, they call that a school shooting. If some kid shoots out or breaks a window of a school while it's closed for over the Thanksgiving recess with a BB gun, they call that window breaking with a BB gun a school shooting. Well, my question, so that is 99% of these 323 school shooting numbers. So my question is, are these morons uh, on the news who are reporting this number, do they know how ridiculous that number is, or are they reporting it anyway, even though they know it's an absurd number? Or are they so stupid do they actually believe we've had 323 actual school shootings? What do you
I
think?
mean, they're doing it for ratings.
For ratings, right? So then I want to see what else. So then I go from CBS, I go over to ABC. So ABC News comes on, and they only report 112, which is only half as many. So that's three. It's 3 a week, which again is way over. But not to be outdone. So since they only had 112, that wasn't sensational enough. But they felt compelled to add the even more ludicrous claim of, but there have been 487 mass shootings so far this year. So, and here's the quote. This is actual quote, and this is from the ABC transcript. There have been 112 school shootings where at least one victim was injured or killed so far this year, according to the Gun Violence Archive. And by the way, the difference there, let me tell you, they make a distinction. So the Gun Violence Archive, the difference between the 112 and the 323 is more than 200 of the incidents that the Gun Violence Archive considered a school shooting. There was nobody injured. Again, like when somebody shot out the school window
Yeah.
or the parked car. Uh, so CBS included all of those incidents where nobody was hit by a bullet. So at least ABC eliminated those and only counted the ones where somebody was actually struck or injured by a bullet. But that also includes the drug deal gone bad in the parking lot on a Saturday night. So they report there have been 112 school shootings where at least one victim was injured or killed so far this year, according to the Gun Violence Archive. And then they go on, however, there have been 487 mass shootings in 2024 as of December 16th. Um, this time last year, there were 641. Now, we've talked about that ridiculous number too. The FBI defines a mass shooting as where 4 or more victims have
Mhm.
been killed at random by a single shooter in a public place. Um, that is not the definition the Gun Violence Archive uses. Their definition is 3 or more people injured or killed by a gun. And no, so in Chicago, if 2 groups of gangbangers start shooting at each other on a Saturday night in Chicago, and 3 of them wind up with minor gunshot wounds and go to the ER to be treated for their minor gunshot wounds, treated and released, They count that as a mass shooting. Do you think a bunch of gangbangers taking pot shots at each other is a mass shooting? Yes, no?
No,
Okay. Why?
nope,
Because no,
nope.
nobody died. B, it wasn't at random. And B, there was more than one shooter. All of these club shootings, 2 o'clock in the morning, the club's letting out and their gunfire breaks out, in the street outside the club with people shooting each other. That's not a mass shooting. The victims aren't random and there's multiple shooters. By the way, are you losing me? I just got a message. My internet is unstable. Can you
You've
hear me?
been a little choppy.
A little choppy? Okay, well, hopefully it'll get good. All right, so who got it right? Well, of all people, Lester Holt on the
Yeah, you're a
NBC.
little choppy.
Still choppy? Still choppy now? Can you hear me now?
Still a little choppy.
All right, well, hopefully it'll get better. All right. Um,
Yep, can hear you now.
all right, so who got it right? Of all people, Lester Holt on the CBS Evening News last night, he got it right. And let me play Lester Holt for you. And here we go. All right, let me play Lester Holt.
Bit by bit by bit. According to an NBC News tally, this is the fourth active shooting in an American school this year. Police say
Four. The number is four, not 323, not 112, four.
Okay, so I was close. I said less than seven.
Less than seven. You were absolutely close. So the only person who got it right was Lester Holt, four. So if anybody doubts that, you want to play in this podcast, again, the gun violence, anything, I shake my head every time I hear these ridiculous numbers that the media from the gun violence. By the way, what happens? The Gun Violence Archive actually prepares a press release, and they send these bogus press releases to every news agency, the NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, local TV. They have a mailing list. New York City, Los Angeles, Detroit, Chicago, and they send these press releases. And I don't know if these reporters are lazy or stupid or willing accomplices, but they just gobble this stuff up and repeat it like puppets. It just so I don't think they understand the
Yeah.
meaning of the word journalism. All right. So speaking of journalists, this follows right
But
through. So
kudos to Lester Holt, though.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What did you say about Lesser?
Kudos to Lester Holt, though, for getting it right.
Kudos for Lester Holt.
Kudos to him for getting it right.
Right. But and here, so
Mhm.
here's an it. So on the topic of journalists, there was actually a study done on journalist brain function, and where they took 80 journalists and they compared them everything from where they gave them written tests and they did some where they put the electrodes on your head, and here's the quote from, and this is, you can find this in Business Insider, and I'll give you the link. It said journalist brains show a lower than average level of executive functioning according to a new study, which means they have below average ability to regulate their emotions, suppress biases, solve complex problems, switch between tasks, and show creative and flexible thinking. The results also showed that journalist brains were operating at a lower level than the average population, particularly because of dehydration and the tendency of journalists to self-medicate with alcohol, caffeine, and high sugar foods. What do you think about that one?
It's interesting the reasons behind it about the caffeine and sugary foods.
Right. But beside from that, they talk about executive function. We all know a wide
Mhm.
gamut of people, from the very, you know, from the kind of the low end to the very high functioning people. But I'm sure you've met some very high functioning executive people in your
Mhm.
time, where they're able to make uh,
Yep.
quick, smart decisions. They can control it. They don't get overly emotional in meetings. They know how to suppress their biases. They know how to tackle complex problems. They know they can multitask. They can switch between one task and another, and they can show creative and flexible thinking. And I think from what I know about you, you may very well fit that category. But
Mhm.
again, when they tested these journalists and
Mhm.
gave them all these like tests about can they some of these tests asked them to switch from doing one thing to another
Mhm.
thing, then back to the first thing. So let me tell you again what they found. Journalist brains show a lower than average level of executive functioning, according to the new study, which means they have below average ability to regulate their emotions, suppress biases, solve complex problems, switch between tasks, and show creative and flexible thinking. Well, that, in my mind, that explains a lot. So, anything you want to add to that about journalists?
No, it's interesting though, and I find it interesting the underlying reasons too.
Yep. Yeah, about they tend to uh, self-medicate with alcohol, caffeine, and high sugar foods. All right. So talking about high sugar foods, I saw
Mhm.
this. I was stunned. If you have just one can of regular, one 12-ounce can of regular soda in a day, you take that average soda, the amount of sugar will add up to 4 pounds. You know what a 4 pound bag of sugar looks like? Are you there? Yeah.
Pretty. I think a regular bag of sugar is 5 pounds when you buy it in the
Well,
grocery store, right? It's five
they,
pounds.
they have a 3 pound and a 5 pound, so you can get the 3 pound or the 5 pound. All right, so
Yeah, I
that's
mean they're pretty big.
they're pretty big. So again, if you had so if that and most people have a soda have more than one soda. You know, they might have a McDonald's, for lunch and I'm getting that unstable. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're a little
Oh,
choppy.
all right. Anyway, so and some people do. So anyway, so if you're drinking regular soda, if you only have one a day, it's 4 pounds of sugar a month. All right. Try to get through this. My internet connection fails. All right. CNN wants the premier news network. You want to guess what network has overtaken them in the ratings? Want to take a guess?
Uh, Going out on a limb here, I'm going to say Fox News.
Oh no, that happened a long, long, long time ago. The Food
Oh,
Network, the Food Network
oh,
now
Food Network.
the Food
Interesting.
Network now has a higher viewer rating than CNN. How how embarrassing is that? You're CNN, you were once one of the premier news agencies in this entire country, if not the world, and you've now been overtaken by the Food Network in the ratings. All right.
Interesting.
All right, how much time we got?
We have about 7 minutes.
All right, let's quickly roll into our taxpayer relief shot. And I know we have some new first-time listeners. I'll let the sheriff of Santa Rosa County explain to you why we
You
call him a
still
tax.
with us there?
All right, I'll let the sheriff of Santa Rosa County tell you why we call these taxpayer relief shots. Here we go.
If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
And again, for our first-time listeners, the cost to arrest a criminal, give him a trial with a jury, with a court-appointed attorney, and then send him to jail for 10 years at 80,000 a year is $1 million. So that's why they're called taxpayer relief shots. And since we have time, let me play a couple more for our first-time listeners here. I think that we got it right here. We have the sheriff, Grady Judd from Polk County, Polk County, Florida.
But we have received information in social media
Mhm.
that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
All right. So that's two. I've got more, but we'll just do those two. And before we lose our internet connection, let me just jump right into this one from Houston, where again, this is a woman in her 50s staying in her father's house, and an intruder comes into the house. And here we go.
Let's get to it. Breaking right now. Police are investigating after a woman says she shot a man who walked into her home in Southwest Houston.
Yeah, quite a sight here. HPD is telling us a father and his daughter were in their home when a man came in. The daughter shot him multiple times. Police say she believe he was breaking into the home. Matt Doherty is at the scene right now. What else can you tell us, Matt?
Well, let me show you where this happened. It happened at that corner, that house on the corner right over there. That's where police are still investigating. They say it happened at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. They say a 50-year-old man got in through the front door and walked into the home inside the house. There was a man and his daughter who was in her 30s. Police say the daughter believed it was a burglar. Then they say she went and got her gun and shot the intruder several times in the abdomen. The man was pronounced dead when police got here. Police say the intruder was not armed, and they say no words were exchanged among the daughter and her father and the intruder. Police say that the residents do not know the man. They're still trying to figure out why he was in that home. They did not say that anything was stolen. They say he was shot when he got about 5 feet in the doorway, in through the doorway. They're focusing a lot of their attention right now on that vehicle that you see right over there. We'll see what happens once Homicide investigators get here in just a little bit, guys.
Now, you can argue that maybe she didn't have to shoot him, maybe she shouldn't have shot him. But in Texas, Texas is one of those what they call castle doctrine states, which means that if there's somebody in your
Yep.
house uninvited, you can shoot him, and you don't need to prove that you were in fear of your life. So, was she premature? Could she have said, "What are you doing here? Get out"?
Yep.
She could have done all that stuff, but who knows what the
Mhm.
guy's intentions were? She shot him. Taxpayer relief shot. We'll never know what this guy's intentions were, but that was the end of that guy. All right. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
remember,
curious to know what color the gun was. What's that?
Well,
And another interesting thing is to the school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin, the fact that the shooter was a female is super rare.
yeah.
So curious to know what happens there on the outcome of the motives on that with a female shooter, because that's very rare.
Right. And by the way, there's a thing. Well, we need more stronger gun laws. What I want to know is what new stronger gun law would have prevented the shooter. By the way, Wisconsin already has a what's called a safe storage law that says, if you have your gun at home and a minor child, you have to have your gun in a lockbox. Well, clearly, either the parents ignored that or she found a way to break into the lock. So I want to know is what new law that isn't already on the books would have prevented this young woman, because she's not old enough to buy or even possess a handgun.
Yep.
So
Yep.
what new law would have prevented this? I cannot for the life of me. Now, if you said, well, they didn't have a safe storage law, then I could say, well, okay, then maybe that would have prevented it. But they have a safe storage law, and the parents ignored it. So I don't know what new law they want to impose that would have prevented this teenage girl from taking this gun and
Yeah, and I don't remember which case it was. About a year or so ago, there was a juvenile who did shoot somebody, kill them, and the parents were actually indicted on manslaughter charges.
That's because the father actually bought the gun for his son. Yep, and let the gun have possession of the gun, and he was a minor child.
Yeah.
He bought the gun for the child, let the kid keep it in his room. So the parents were clearly negligent in that case. So yes, they were found guilty of criminally negligent homicide,
Yep.
and I think right because I wouldn't let my 16-year-old kid keep a rifle in his room. So anyway,
Yeah.
particularly by the way, a kid that had a known psychological problems. This kid was trouble. He'd been expelled from
Yeah.
school. So anyway, I know we're running out of time. So to wrap up, I want to thank everybody who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about things I find of interest and importance, particularly our new first-time listeners.
Mhm.
I hope you found those topics as interesting and important as I did, and if so, I hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, you'll be able to find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerseyjoe.com, with Jersey being spelled Jerz as in zebra, Jerzee, jerseyjoe.com. Just give producer Susan a day or two to put them up on the website. And if you want to email me with a comment, question, suggested show topic, or your vote on the stupidest thing we've heard all week, you can do that by sending me an email to joe@jerseyjoe.com. Again, joe@jerseyjoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and double A, jerseyjoe.com. And with that, producer Susan, anything you want to add?
Yeah, and with the poor internet connection, all those links will be up on the web.
All right, I'm losing. I'm going to sign off before this thing crashes. All right.
You can go back and read the stories yourself.
Okay, great. All right, producers. So I'll talk to you next week. You take care. Bye bye.